how it's going to work is this. I'm going to play the video for Team 1, at which point then I'll ask everybody in Team 1 to put their cameras on and be available to answer questions. And so as we are watching this, please think about, are there any questions that you might have for the team? I've put in a link to where you can find these videos on Canvas for later if you like. I'm also putting in a link now for where to find the team briefs. Okay. So let's get started, and we'll welcome Team 1, who's obviously going to talk to us tonight about Woolworths. Okay, so let's play the video. And
hi everyone, welcome to.
Can you hear that on Zoom there? Can you nod your head if you're able to hear that? Yeah, fantastic. Thank you.
Our Team 1 presentation, Woolworths Supermarkets and Sustainable Development Goals for 2025. Based on our introduction, our presentation will discuss the topics of climate change and underwater life. Our core business focus is Woolworths cost benefit and KPIs on these two topics. SDG number 13, climate action, and number 14, life below water. We will be sharing our research and statistics on the benefits and recommendation for sustainable development goals towards 2025. Over to you, Yinjin.
Okay, as one of the largest supermarket chain in Australia, Woolworths has huge energy consumption and opportunities. We suggest this can take 7 agent actions to combat climate change from the perspective of the supply chain, transportation, supermarket design, and sales. Firstly, focus supply chain. Supermarkets should try their best to purchase safe, green, and environmentally friendly products and reduce the purchase of over-packaged products. As for the cost, the purchase price of goods green product is relatively high. That increases the procurement cost. However, the environmental benefits of enterprises have improved. The cost of environmental treatment can be reduced. The products with a less potential waste can help companies save treatment costs as well as establish an environmentally friendly corporate image. In addition, most of the surplus green produce in supermarket can be transferred to farmers, converted into usable energy, which can also be profitable for business. Secondly, we talk about transportation. In the 2021 report, transport carbon dioxide emissions were over 200,000 tons. This order to reduce emissions, it is important for Woolworths to choose new energy vehicles. The annual energy consumption cost of gas line truck is $10,000 more than the new energy trucks. And the purchase cost of the new energy trucks is about 1.2 times that of the gas line trucks. Assuming that 20,000 trucks are required. Also, the purchase cost has increased. The advantage of new energy vehicles in terms its energy consumption will appear off after 3 years. In addition, enterprises can recycle transport bags and delivery boxes, which can reduce the cost of pollution control during the production and the process of expensive boxes and improve the environmental benefits of the enterprises. Finally, some suggestion for supermarket design and sales. Control the temperature, use eco-friendly lighting, recycle water, issue the electrolyte receipts, sell recyclable and reusable bags, and lead a green lifestyle. Overall, when adapt a range of the environmental measures that initially face a higher expense, but it's in the long run, these costs are subsequently expensive. These measures can help Woolworths bring in more customers, reduce energy consumption, and reduce expenses related of environmental protection. Next, please, the time it shows.
Thank you, Eugene. So before jumping to the goals and KPIs set by Woolworths and discuss opportunities of improvements for Woolworths, I would like to list out the evidence that has compelled us to take actions to this irreversible impact of the climate change on Earth. Global temperature has risen from 1 degree Celsius since last 19th century, mostly by increase in CO2 in atmosphere. As we are aware, Earth stores 90% of extra energy in the ocean, and as a result, there was increase of 0.3 degrees Celsius in the ocean temperature. There are many other compelling evidence like decreased snow cover, increased sea level rise by 20 centimeter, extreme events, and ocean acidification that has given us warning about climate change impact. Since the beginning of Industrial Revolution, the acidity of ocean waters has increased by 30%. Moving on, in this slide, I will be discussing about the goals and KPIs set by Woolworths, contributing to obtain a global goal of limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees above the industrial level. As you can see here, the Woolworths goal is to go 100% green by 2025, and they aim to go carbon positive by 2050. Woolworths Group have identified that 82% of their operation emission is from electricity. Therefore, their move of partnering with CWP Renewable, which will cover 30% of energy needs, quite aligned with their goal. Woolworths, they have also installed solar panels that produces about 31 megawatts and hence is a contributing factor to their KPIs. Data suggests that Woolworths have managed to reduce Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions by 27% below the 2015 baseline. So what do you think is the contributing factor for this achievement? Well, Woolworths Group have had many initiatives in reducing carbon emissions, like refrigerant management, where they have used improved technology to limit refrigerant leakage, introduction of new carbon fleet, new low carbon fleet, green star design, that means going green right from construction, and Project Enlighten, where they upgraded lightings in all stores. And they have a team who looks after proactive energy management system, which identifies issues before becoming a problem. Now, moving on to the opportunities where they can improve on, Woolworths have worked on narrowing scope down and scope 1 and 2 emissions, but they need to focus on reducing scope 3 emissions, which represent about 70% of total carbon emissions. They can achieve this by actually identifying upstream and downstream emissions in supply chain, by identifying the hotspots in supply chain and take actions to reduce the hotspots by setting certain KPIs to measure the performance. They can identify sustainable supplier and set a goal to help them go more sustainable. And the internal thing that they can do to limit carbon footprints is by avoiding business travels. And so moving on, Kelly will take over to explain the other aspects.
Thanks, Romina. So we're looking after SDG number 14, Life Below Water. The Woolworths Group complete the annual sustainability report in support of their overarching Green Bond framework. With this framework, there are guided principles to develop and refine practices constructed for environmentally sustainable outcomes, such as regenerative farming, practices otherwise known as carbon farming, to emphasise and implement integrated water solution strategies, not just here in Australia, but around the world. By installing smart meters, it will monitor water quality and efficiency in high-risk areas. High-risk areas are classed as frequent or overfished areas and location of waterways close to landfill or populated cities. Woolworths own and branded seafood. In order for this to be successful, Woolworths will be required to undertake rigorous processes to determine how they source their seafood. They may need to construct private farm areas, seek permits to isolate certain fishing areas without encroaching on natural habitats and disturbing the ecological balance. Research and consumption rate for consumers and particular crustaceans, fish or shellfish that might be popular throughout certain times of the year, like Easter and Christmas. This can ensure they meet adequate supply and demand, which will make seafood produce more affordable. Next, we're looking at the overall benefits of this particular element with life underwater. The benefits of the Woolworths Group providing ecologically and sustainably sourced seafood assists them in achieving their original key performance indicator of 100% waste reduction by 2025. This will flow through to consumers to promote healthier living with the selection of products to choose and consume, providing the best transport delivery method within all serviceable and non-serviceable customer locations. By way of improving our service delivery, we can reconfigure and optimise our supply chain services via sea freight. This will set the precedence to go above and beyond and immediately set us apart from the rest due to existing supply chain issues. Achieving these benefits will continue to align with our green bond principles and eligible assets for pollution prevention and control, environmentally sustainable management of living natural resources and land, terrestrial and aquatic biodiversity, conservation and clean transportation. So now we have recommendations that can streamline the entire benefits and KPIs. By using these key performance indicators are not just short-term requirements. Applying them as part of their ongoing maintenance and process improvement, we'd like to recommend strategies to make these ideas a reality by building relationships with local fisheries, by surveying fishing locations closer to Australian waters, which can also mitigate the importing of non-local seafood. Review size and frequency of location on chartered vessels rather than one large charter vessel sitting in a single location for several days. Opt for 3 or 4 smaller vessels dotted around various locations within permitted areas. Ascertain if you need to discharge the vessel at a major port, or could we develop new infrastructure for a Woolworths Group private marine facility, which will mitigate long wait times for pilots and berthing. Time delays incurred, demurrage for unloading of produce and loading of new equipment will also be significantly reduced. Determine if your warehouse location is within a 20-kilometre radius of each port location, and the warehouse is equipped to provide short-term, high-turnover produce. This will reduce the number of heavy vehicles on the road and continue to offset carbon emissions whilst reducing the delivery timeframes to consumers. Over to you, Shiming.
Thank you, Kelly. Next, I will take Woolworths as an example to introduce to you the impact of underwater life on the cost and benefit of Australia's supermarket. It is well known the oceans cover 3/4 of the world's surface area, and more than 3 billion people depend on marine and coast life for their livelihoods. The market value of marine and coastal resource and industries is estimated at $3 trillion a year, or about 5% of global GDP. Globally, the oceans absorb about 30% of carbon dioxide and cushioning the effect of global warming. The sustainable use of the marine resource is of great importance both economically and environmentally. As one of the largest supermarkets in Australia, Woolworths should respond to the sustainable use of ocean and marine resource in operation and production management to promote sustainable development. I will analyze the costs and benefits of plastic pollution and overfishing. Single-use plastic produce a lot of waste. If all the plastic waste produced in 2020 alone were melted down, a 30-foot wedge pass to the moon could be laid. Plastic pollution is now the biggest killer of the marine life. Supermarkets are the place where the average customer comes into most contact with single-use plastics. Woolworths, Australia's largest supermarket chain with 1,027 stores across the country, release over 3.2 billion single-use plastic bags every year, many of which end up in landfills or in the ocean. Also, it is investable to provide customers with plastic package in the food retail chain. Not all foods need to sold in plastic package. Reducing unnecessary plastic package in the supply chain has huge cost implications both for supermarkets themselves and for sustainability. The mall will help save more than 37 tons of package per year. Overfishing have been cited as the major cause of the collapse of fish stocks, and food waste goes hand in hand with overfishing. In Australia alone, up to 44 million tons of food are wasted each year, include a lot of seafood. According to our statistics, Woolworths waste up to 1 million tons of seafood every year. Although they didn't want to generate such a huge waste, Woolworths couldn't accurately predict the daily demand. With such a large customer base, they cannot reduce food waste to 0%. If Woolworths can predict customer needs as accurately as possible, Woolworths can reduce procurement cost and post-processing cost and reduce sustainability problem caused by overfishing. We finished our presentation. Thank you for listening.
So, thank you for that, Team 1. Okay, so do we have all the members of Team 1 online?
Yeah.
Great. So, thank you, Team 1, for being the first to present, and well done. Now, I'll ask if there are any questions from the audience. So if you've got any questions, feel free to type it in the chat box, and you can type it in during the presentation as well, or for the next ones, or unmute your mic, or ask if you're in the classroom. So any questions for Team 1?
Is crickets a good thing or a bad thing?
There is a question. So let me just.
Hi. I'm not too sure about the scope 3 study for the carbon fit. Yeah, what is it about? Because I know you did mention about it in the video, but I don't really get that part. The scope 3 study. Yeah. For carbon fit. Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Yeah, are you referring to carbon farming?
Did you hear the question?
Yeah, I just couldn't quite understand what he was saying. Is he referring to the carbon farming element of the presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so the carbon farming element, based on our research, is just offsetting the current methods of what they're doing in the farming industry at the moment. So they're going with more neutralized fertilizer, so it's not as processed as it is normally. They're going with other options, so they're going with pre-cultivated plant life, all that sort of thing. So it applies to land and sea. So they're looking at safer, more organic methods of farming to offset the current carbon emissions that they do with local farming at the moment.
Thank you. Any other questions? Team 1 at this stage? Yep. Yep. How do you plan to reduce the amount of food waste? Is the question. So Kelly, you answered the last one. Did someone else want to answer that one? So Yijin, do you want to answer that question? How are they going to, how can Woolworths reduce the amount of food waste?
I think if Woolworths want to control the food waste, the firstly it's in my part I say it's need to get a green lifestyle, because Woolworths is a very big company and has some responsibility for get the good lifestyle and have the they need have purchase more electrical friendly product and sell more green product than the package over than the something easy to waste.
Well, I can add something. So Woolworths can have a proper tracing and tracking system where we will know that what product are going to get expired soon, and by that means we can have information pre-hand that these products are going to expire soon, and then we can donate it to other organizations which are in need of those food. This way, that can be recycled and reused. So that way we can have Woolworths can have a better management of food wastage.
Thank you. And now my final question is for Shuming. What specific KPIs are you recommending that they use for life below water? What should they be measuring to know, and in order to know if they're doing better? Shuming, do you have an answer there, Shuming? Can you hear us? Not sure. Okay. Well, I might have to move on. I'll send you an email. Can you answer by email, Shuming? No? Maybe you can't hear. Can you? Okay. Well, I'll come back to that then. So let's move on now. Let's move on to presentation number 2. So, yeah, can everybody hear me on Zoom? Yeah, okay, good. Okay, so let's move on to presentation number 2.
Hello, I'm Guillaume. I'm the leader of team 2. Today I will...
Can everybody hear?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, let's hear from team number 2.
We'll, with my team, Bernie, Zanka, and Jack, will present an Australian industry and study its involvement into following the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. First of all, I will present...
Jeffrey, we're not getting that.
Upside and downside. Secondly...
Sorry?
We're not getting that presentation visible through Zoom. We can hear it, but we can't see it.
Thank you.
Yeah, we cannot see the video. Yeah.
Thanks for that.
Sorry, interrupt.
No, that's good. Thank you. Okay.
Bernie will talk about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Here, with my team, Bernie, Zanka, and Jack, will present an Australian industry and study its involvement into following the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. First of all, I will present the industry, talk about its upside and downside. Then secondly, Bernie will talk about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals in more details, and he's going to cover which goal we are going to present more in depth. Zanka is going to cover the cost of taking actions to follow the goals that Bernie covered, and then he's going to cover the benefits on the long term that could be gained. And lastly, Jack is going to cover the KPI that we think should be evaluated, and then he'll summarize. So the industry we decided to present is the Australian trucking industry. What the industry is currently good at. The peer-to-peer learning environment is a great positive, as it can help newcomers into the industry to create bonds with existing drivers, and they can gain a lot of experience thanks from it and prevent rookie mistakes from being done. The fact that the position is not located in only one area of the country is positive, as it drops all the barriers into entry into the industry. Thirdly, it's relatively easy for a driver to go into more responsibility positions. For example, he can become a manager or something like this for a company. Well, another thing is the management can be held accountable for a mistake that would be made, but that would be done by an employee. For example, if the truck is overloaded, it's not going to be the driver alone who might be blamed. In short, the Australian trucking industry accounts for 101 billion Australian dollars in revenue. It accounts for 500,000 employees, and the road freight segment alone is 185 employees. Since the end of the decade, we saw a reduction in the number of trucks running empty. However, there are still a lot of challenges in the industry. For example, the Australian geography is itself a challenge. It's a very regulated industry. For example, if a truck coming from Brisbane to Melbourne can be checked up to 10 times, which is excessive. The general public has a very negative image of the industry. For example, the truck driver, they suffer from very poor recognition from the general public and also from a low income, which can lead them into early retirement, and it puts a huge strain into the resources. The COVID-19 pandemic also was challenging to handle. For example, the border closure was something that was poorly managed and made the planning of routes even more tricky than it used to be. And lastly, the environmental pollution, namely CO2 and the noise pollution, is something that was very challenging. But that's going to be Bernie's part, and he'll present more just now.
This is Bernie from the Future. I'll introduce you the UN Sustainability Goals 13 to 17 at the beginning of the talk. For the Goals 13, climate action, the main topics in this goal are atmosphere and climate change. For atmosphere, it protects and sustains the planet's inhabitants. However, the economic activities human conducted have weakened our atmosphere, and the result of the atmospheric damage is climate change. Facing to the climate change, humanity must take action to prevent further atmospheric damage. And for the goal 14, left below water, this goal aims to conserve and sustainably use the water. Problems affect biodiversity now we face to are plastic pollution, ocean warming, eutrophication, acidification, and the fishery collapse. For the goal 15, life on land, this goal is to protect, restore, and promote sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystem. Sustainably manage forests, combat desertification, and halt and reverse land degradation and halt biodiversity loss. For the goal 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions, the UN asks to promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, provide access to justice for all, and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. For the goal 17, This goal is mainly to realize the common sustainable development of the world by helping and assisting countries with backward economic development. Next slide, please. And for trucking industry, the goal 13 is the priority bill. The greenhouse gas emission is a major issue in trucking industry. This problem contributes a lot to climate change. And as for the influence, climate change brings more catastrophic weather events. The fuel prices are rising after these events predictably. Besides, truck drivers are willing to add accessories or modify trucks to improve fuel efficiency, leading to costs rising as well. And three actions we recommend are using renewable energy to reduce carbon emissions like electricity, biomass, and solar energy. The second action is to strengthening the training of truck drivers and including sustainable development of climate change in the scope of driver's license assessment. And the last is strengthening the regulatory capacity of functional departments and formulate regulations to curb excessive emissions. And next is welcome Yang to introduce more.
Okay, this is Zhengke, and I will introduce the cost and benefit. So in terms of cost, there are three main areas that the trucking industry should focus on to address the issue of climate change. The first area is the additional expenditure required to purchase new energy trucks. Carbon emissions are one of the significant causes of climate change. So effective control of carbon emissions is one of the most efficient ways to combat climate change. This could be done, for example, by replacing fuel-powered vehicles with electric ones and by setting up relative distribution and replacement stations. But while making this shift, there can be high additional cost to the business. Another aspect is the cost of promoting climate change, which also requires a certain amount of investment to help people understand climate change better and thus increase the social perception of the company. Next slide, please. I will then describe the benefit that this will bring. The first aspect is that the fuel transition will save companies much money in transport costs because of the different prices of different fuels. Hydrogen and electricity are much cheaper than conventional fuels. So although the transition will require some additional expenditure in the short term, in the long time, it will save business more money in the future. The second aspect is about low carbon emissions. In today's world, low carbon has become a common goal for all countries. So making these changes will meet the common goals of today's world and increase the social recognition of the company. This will increase the visibility of the company to a certain extent. The last aspect is about the company's image, which after making these changes saves the company much money in transport costs and can thus improve the company's appearance as a whole. This makes customers more inclined to choose environmentally friendly companies than those that have not yet made the transition. In summary, the transition will not only save future transport costs and build a good corporate image for the company. However, it will also open our future market by attracting more customers through lower transport prices. And next is Jen.
Hi everyone, my name is Jen. As we know, a key performance indicator, which also called the KPI evaluation to the success of a company or of a particular activity in which it ages, determining the improvement of an industry requires quantitative metrics. So we need to determine what metrics to use to measure the performance of the trucking industry. We set a measurable metric for each of the 3 points that the truck industry responses on. We can use the proportion of trucks using renewable energy and the average emissions of trucks, including carbon emissions, carbon motion, and method to measure the performance of relevant companies in replacing fuel by renewable energy. regarding of the strength of the tracking of the good driver, it is difficult for us to directly examine the effect of the training, but we can check whether the number of companies related to truck drivers received by the company has decreased over the same period. If the number of related companies decrease, it is more likely that the training has been achieved good results. Regulatory capacity of the function department is the most different of the three methods to quantify. In order to find out whether the regulatory capacity has been strengthened, we can look at the number of the truck drivers. The shortage of truck drivers is a major problem facing the trucking industry right now. If the number of trucking drivers increase, it is more likely that the regulational capacity of the industry has strengthened. However, there are many other facts that can affect this indicated. Next one. In conclusion, the current trucking industry in Australia faces challenges such as the environmental pollution, negative impressions, and the lack of management. Active adoption of relevant measures can enable the trucking industry to meet these challenges, and these measures also need to be driven by the KPIs. Overcoming these challenges not only promoted the sustainable development of the truck industry, but also promote the sustainable development of Australia and the world as a whole. In addition to this, we have some questions, such as how to protect the rights of truck drivers while upgrading the truck industry in the absence of the business expansion and revenue growth in the truck industry. Where will the funds of replacing renewable energy and strengthening training come from? Next. That's all, thank you. This is our group's reference list. That's all, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Team 2. Yep, so Keith is...
I'm in Team 2, sorry, typo mistake. Thanks.
Yep. So we've got William in class. We got Bernie online, and then do we have and there's the receipt. Thank you. So just checking we've got everybody. So my questions, so Keith has asked a question. Do you have some numbers for the benefits and the cost? So have you done analysis on you've listed out what the expected benefits and costs are. Have you got any analysis on the size of those benefits and costs at this stage? Or is that future research?
I think that's
sorry. That looks like it's going to need to be future research. Okay. Thank you, Keith, for asking questions. Good. So let's go through then. I'll start. Let's start with Bernie. So let's see. So you were looking at goal 13 on climate action as being the most important. And you're listing out replacing fuel with renewable energy, strengthen the training of truck drivers, and strengthen the regulatory capacity. Can you unpack what the industry is currently doing in terms of replacing, moving towards renewable energy? So Bernie, what are they currently doing at the moment?
You mean the specific companies who use the renewable energy, or the?
Yeah. So let me be a bit more specific. So you set out that that's the goal, is to move to renewable energy. Yep. So has the industry started that process? yet, or are they dragging their feet? Have they said there's some barrier to it? What are they currently saying at this moment in time?
You mean the current situation?
Yeah.
Because I didn't research a lot, and I didn't know what Australia truck industry do, but in my country, in China.
Yeah, so what are they doing in China then? Yeah.
So in China, I think about 20% to 30% logistics company, they use the electric trucks to deliver the package. And that's the current situation in China. And I think this is a future goal for both China and Australia and other countries in the world.
Okay. And is that short? The 20 to 30%? Is that short distance, or are they doing long distance deliveries?
Short distance. Most situations just deliver to the near to the near provinces.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So. Sorry, William was just saying that within Australia, very low levels, if you didn't hear that, very low levels of electrification for urban delivery, and almost nothing for intercity. It's most diesel. Okay. So thank you for responding well to that question, Bernie. Next question is for Zheng. Zheng, I'm sorry, I hope I said that correctly. So you listed out purchasing new energy trucks, obviously, and then establishing the recharging stations and that level of infrastructure. Yeah, makes sense. Then you're talking about conducting communication on climate change. Could you unpack that a little bit? Is that something that you're thinking the trucking industry needs to do, individual trucking firms? Is it about and who are they needing to convince there with that communication strategy?
I think that the company need to be to put out for different kinds of the transit, such as the individual or the companies, and they can be the customers can choose choose the type and what do they want, not just only one style, but they have a lot of style to choose it. Also the customer can choose the personal type and the company type and together.
Okay, so thank you, Li Jian. So then, okay. So Zheng Yang, could you answer this question? And then, so the last question is, you said purchasing new energy trucks. Over what time period are you thinking there? Zheng Yang, can you answer that question?
Sorry, I need a thinking.
Okay. Any thoughts, Sim?
Maybe not. I can't answer the question right now. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for being with us. Okay, well, we can talk later. Yeah. Okay, thank you then, Team 2. thanks for that presentation. And a lot to think about there for the trucking industry. And obviously, I guess the takeaway at this stage is that the industry knows what it needs to do, but it's how we're actually going to get there is going to be the challenge, particularly in a country like Australia where we've got long distances and not great infrastructure in between those cities. So even when we're talking about urban deliveries in Australia, the distances are much further than they would be in mainland China. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thing two. Yeah, okay. So now we'll get to team 3. Oops. Okay, so now we've got team 3 who's going to talk about coals. So just nod if you can hear team 3.
Good afternoon, coast management. My name is Keith Kwong, together with my teammate Aisha, Huoxin, and Tianyi. What you see on the screen is a stunning yet heartbreaking image. The photo was taken at our Great Barrier Reef, where the coral is bleaching due to rising of ocean temperature. We are very happy to see supermarket giant like Coles taking actions to fight climate change, and appreciate for the opportunity for our team to share with you what are the more sustainable supply chain actions you can do more. Australia is experiencing a more extreme weather. Our global temperature continues to rise. Australia has average increased 1.4 degrees Celsius since the 1910, and we are having less rainfall. So projected by 2090, our rain in southwestern Australia will reduce by half. Because of the heat and also the less rain, there is an article from Climate Council warning us we are going to face these kind of mega fires more frequently because of the climate change. Our team has come up with 3 proposals how to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. So we have green energy. We are also proposing use low carbon technology and also reduce and recycle plastic. Now I would like to pass the floor to Guoxi to share with you more of the actions related to green energy. Thank you.
In March 2021, the Coast Group has announced the following commitments in responding to the climate change. So the first is to have zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050, which is a very good approach, but it's also possible for them to take a further step, like having a net positive carbon emissions by 2050, which means to go beyond net zero. It also committed to reduce Scope 1 and Scope 2 greenhouse gas emissions by more than 75% by the end of 2030 from a 2020 baseline. It's also a good commitment, but it misses the Scope 3. So basically, Scope 1 comes directly from sources controlled or owned by an organization, like company vehicles and facilities. The Scope 2 is more about the indirect use, such as heating and cooling, the electricity used. The Scope 3 include fuel consumption by the logistic transport, business travel, and home delivery, which is also an important part of their value chain. And the last one is to have 100% renewable electricity by 2025. This can also be improved to have 100% renewable and green energy. So this is not only about becoming more energy efficient, but also introduce a new term, which is green energy. So what is green energy? What is the difference between green energy and renewable energy? Green energy is any energy that is generated from natural resources, such as sunlight, wind, water, geothermal, biomass, and biofuel. It often comes from renewable energy, but in addition to renewable energy, green energy doesn't produce any pollution and avoid any sourcing that is damage to the environment. For example, power generation that burns organic material from sustainable forests may be renewable, but it's not necessarily green due to the CO2 produced by the burning process itself. So green energy is not just good for the planet, but it's also better for the health of people and animals that have to breathe the fresh air. And the following section basically summarizes the cost and benefit of using green energy. So the first is to install solar panels. So installing solar panels contributes a huge saving of energy consumptions, and it produces clean and renewable energy that is significantly benefit to the environment. It reduces greenhouse gas and saves non-renewable sources. According to the research, 100 kilowatt solar panels is able to generate more than 0.5 megawatt hours every year. So if you have, for example, 30,000 100 kilowatt solar panels, they can approximately generate 15,000 megawatts annually. Another solution would be installing LED system. This can be done by installing LED system to cover more stores through replacements, upgrades, and new store installations. They will all largely reduce electricity usage. In fact, Woolworths has pretty much done this very well, and it announced that there has been around 1,000 stores installed with LED system, and it saves more than 10% of the total store energy consumptions. And the last one is to introduce Green Star design for its new distribution centers and shops. A typical Green Star design should certainly install the solar panels and LED system, and also source all energy that is from renewable source to make sure that it's not only being more energy efficient, but also directly reduce the carbon emissions. So as you can see, 30,000 solar panels plus 1,000 LED system together can contribute to around 20% reduction in carbon emissions from 2015 baseline. There are also KPI measurements in terms of using green energy. So for example, reduce greenhouse gas emission by more than 75% by 2030 and saves more than 20% of energy consumptions every year. And also to make sure that every delivery vehicle will have at least 90% of loading density. So basically just to deliver as much as possible to maximum the transportation efficiency. I will now pass Tianyi to introduce the low carbon technology.
Thanks, Guoxing. In this part, I would like to introduce the low carbon technology in storage and transportation. That is a refrigeration system and air conditioning system and the electric vehicles. Well, traditionally, the refrigerants which use in supermarket are mainly chlorofluorocarbons, and these chemical substances are highly oxidizing. If it leaks to the air, the ozone layer of the Earth will be damaged and finally cause a climate change. Therefore, we will recommend codes, firstly, to update the refrigeration system by replacing the refrigerants from the chlorofluorocarbons to carbon dioxide. Maybe you wonder why carbon dioxide works as a refrigerant. Isn't it a greenhouse gas? Yes, but the reason carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas is because many industrial applications emit large amount of it. If we just use it in refrigeration, contrary to chlorofluorocarbons, its global warming potential is negligible when applied as a refrigerant. Secondly, we will recommend codes do a combination. That is, combine the refrigeration and air conditioning into one system. If we do, the energy can be saved and the cool air from both systems can be recycled. Thirdly, the pipeline optimization. In this process, codes need to replace the old leaky pipes to reduce the cooling loops and energy consumption. If codes can achieve this updating, approximately 85 tons carbon dioxide emission will be reduced per store per year. and cool air leakage rate will drop 37%, which contribute to reduce the energy consumption and provide energy efficiency. So we set a KPI target for coals by 2030, at least 90% coal store use carbon dioxide refrigerants, and scope 1 and 2 greenhouse gas emission reduce more than 75%. Okay, let's move to the transportation. Because of the use of fossil vehicles, the carbon emissions are high in transportation. Therefore, we recommend coals to use electric vehicles to deliver the goods. Because comparing with fossil cars, electric vehicles is zero carbon emission vehicles. And there is technological limitations. That is, electric cars can only travel 100 kilometers, which means that they can't be used for interstate transportation. If we do, it will require a large amount of charging stations. So we will recommend coals just use the electric vehicles in urban area. In addition, to reduce the carbon emission, we also recommend coals to optimize their freight routes. For example, if they can reduce 10% of the length of shipments, it will reduce 45 kilogram carbon dioxide emission per time. So, and just because of the use of electric vehicles, coals need more workers to maintain both cars and stations. And for the KPI target, we will give to coals that is by 20 cities, 90% of the urban delivery use electric cars. Now I will leave the time to my teammate Aisha. She will introduce the plastic topic.
Thank you, Shelly. Thank you for that. We will be focusing on reduction and reusing of soft plastic. So in the 2015 Paris Climate Agreement, the world agreed to pursue the global temperature rise to keep it below 1.5 degrees Celsius. But the way that we are using plastic, the life cycle of plastic will produce by 2050 2.8 gigatons of carbon dioxide per year, which is 10% of our remaining carbon budget. To reduce this, we have to recycle. Coles is doing a lot of recycling efforts with its partner Recycle. Therefore, we are saying just recycling is not enough. We have to precycle. Precycling on top of recycling. Precycling is using less plastic in the first place. We don't want to produce so many plastic bills which people are not willing to use or people don't know how to use. Therefore, we have created strategic, tactical, and operational goals for coals. Next slide, please. For strategic goal, we have keep it in line with coal's general goal, which is to get it to zero, better together. For tactical goals, we have created 3 tactical goals. The first one is to stop providing all plastic bags in store. The second one is to reduce plastic packaging. And the third one is to use sustainable packaging. We have produced operational goals for each of these tactical goals. To stop providing plastic bags in store, goals can facilitate providing reusable, washable, and recycled fabric bags, jute bags, and recycled paper bags. Instead of the white plastic bags, coals can do paper pouch, reusable and washable light fabric pouch, and pouches like this. For the next one, to reduce plastic packaging, coals can sell their staples like rice, lentils in bulk dispensers, and customers can bring in their own containers to fill up their needs in their own containers. This will be difficult in the beginning for sure, so coals can provide customers cost-saving benefits as small as 10 cents per container, so that customers can remember to bring in their containers. And for fresh produce, we are hoping that Coles will package their fresh produce in coconut or paper hulls, coconut hull packaging or paper packaging similar to these. And for soft vegetables and herbs, Coles can package them with the use of hardy leaves like banana leaves. I've seen this in Thailand, and this is particularly close to my heart. They package their vegetables like this in banana leaves, and it is completely compostable and natural, no plastic. For the third one, sustainable packaging, Coles can use corrugated sheets or corrugated paper packaging. They can use bamboo packaging or coconut hull packaging. If nothing can be done, you have to use plastic. They can use 100% recycled plastic, which is recyclable, reusable, and compostable. Next slide, please. In this next one, we look at the costs and benefits and some KPI measures for Coles. The cost, definitely, the capital expenditure for setting up dispensers and accommodating sustainable packaging is a high capital expenditure, and cost of recycled pouches will be higher than the white plastic. And it will take some time to find new supplies for those hardy leaves and coconut foam packaging. And there will be some initial sales loss because customers might be confused. They might not be, because we are using the dispensers for pet treats and snacks, but some customers might be confused, and we have to accommodate some lost sales because of that. However, when customers are more used to it, there will be decreased operational expenditure on packaging, purely because we will not be packaging every kilogram or every 2 kilogram in plastic, and customers will be using their own containers to get their products. And there will be some increased demand for containers and cotton netted totes. And the most important benefit is customers will look at us as more sustainable, and we will contribute to the reduction of plastic waste. The key performance indicators, KPIs, are all based on 2030. We want to install for at least 100 staple groceries in 90% Coles stores the bulk dispensers, and we want to phase out all plastic bags by 2030 and package all fresh produce in plastic-free packaging. By 2030, we don't want to use any virgin plastic, and by 2040, we want to suggest Coles that all their products are moved to sustainable packaging. That's all from me. Thank you so much for your time. And we are happy as a team to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, team. That was well done, and enjoyed all the presentations tonight. Just as we've done for teams 1 and 2, got a few minutes. We'll have some questions for team 3 now. Now, I understand it's already 9 p.m. here in Sydney, so if you do need to leave, that's understandable. Team 3, please stay back. If you do have some questions, just put them in the chat box before you go, and I'm happy to answer them. Yeah, we got one question. Yep. So, yeah. Okay, thank you for that. So we got one question from in the classroom. Very good question. So, Aisha, you were talking about changing to all sorts of new forms of packaging and dispensing from your bulk dispensing and so on. COVID-19 is a big issue with that. I know we've gone back to a lot of individual wrapping as a result. What are the issues there, and do you know what's happening overseas around that?
Overseas, I'm not too sure, but here, yes, COVID-19 is a big issue. And for a while, we could not take our own plastic bags to Coles, or we could, but the team members wouldn't pack it for us. We had to do it ourselves. But even at the peak of COVID-19, I was never forced to buy new plastic bags. Even at the peak of COVID-19, I could go in and tell them, all right, don't pack my goods. I will pack my own goods in my own the better bags, Coles plastic bags. So I don't think if we're allowed to take our own containers and keep it in our trolley and use the dispensers to put them in our own containers, that will not be contaminating the stores by COVID-19 any more than if we pick up a product and leave it in the aisle again. So we're touching the dispenser handles only, just the way we take nuts nowadays from Coles. So we're just touching the dispensers, and there will be team members wiping the dispensers just the way they do the aisles and other store.
Thank you. So next question is, any other questions from the audience?
Yeah, Jeffrey, I've got one for Tiani. Mate, when you say about the integration between the aircon and refrigeration units at Coles, did you look into how they plan on doing that, or not so much yet?
Sorry, Coles did what?
So when you were doing your research, did you look into how Coles are going to plan to integrate the refrigeration and the aircon systems?
Oh yes, they have did something, but the Coles group didn't give a specific number how many store has combined the air condition and refrigeration system. So I just got this idea from Coles annual report, and I think if they combine the air condition and refrigeration system, they have some benefits to lower the carbon emission. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is for, I guess, Aisha again. Should the company who produced the product be responsible for providing reusable containers or whatnot, or is it Coles's responsibility, or I guess the customer's responsibility?
So what I envision in my presentation, I wanted to come across that it is the customer's responsibility. So I could take I wasn't implying that to reduce plastic, you buy more plastic containers. In my mind, I had glass containers. So I was thinking that I could take my own glass containers to Coles and fill them up. But sure, if anybody is more comfortable with plastic containers, the hard plastic, they don't go to landfill generally. We will recycle them. The soft plastic are more problematic. They don't go to the curbside recycling, and Coles do recycling the soft plastic with Red Cycle, and Woolworths does it with someone else as well. Most of the supermarkets are doing it, but we are focusing on soft plastic, which generally ends up in landfill. So yes, it is the customer's responsibility. I'm happy for the customer to buy the boxes from Coles and reuse it again and again. Or I'm sure Coles will be happy with that too. They can. In my mind, I was thinking they could keep containers beside the dispensable dispensers, so that if I forget to bring my container, or if I'm encouraged to do it, I can buy the containers and reuse it again and again. Similar way, when they started giving out, when they stopped the single-use plastic, they had the shopping bags at the checkout. So similar to that, so Coles could encourage customers to buy containers, and that's also, I've listed that as a benefit. So it will be increased sales for Coles containers, but in general, it will be the customer's responsibility to bring in the containers.
Yeah, I guess it does make a bit of sense from Coles' perspective, because rather than having to supply the plastic, they're actually able to charge the customer for the plastic.
Yes.
So my next question is for Keith.
Yep.
So your team chose to look at green energy and low carbon technology and reducing and recycling soft plastic.
Yes.
How did your team come up with those as the three main priorities?
Yes, because the topic we are picking is the climate change. Okay, so one of the major driver for the climate change is the greenhouse gas emission. Okay, so we pick three of the toppest problem issue that release a greenhouse gas. Okay, so that's the reason why we picked like these three top solutions. The aim is to reduce the greenhouse gas, to reduce the impact to the global warming, and hence we can reduce the impact on the climate change.
Okay.
So that's the logic. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
I'm sorry, I'd like to add here, with soft plastic, it didn't make sense for me the first time as well. Soft plastic, we're not talking about soft plastic going to the water. That's also a problem. But here we are talking about soft plastic ending up in landfill and creating carbon emission. So our whole concept was carbon emission, and we have extensively brainstormed what to work on, but we have selected the topics based on carbon emission, and all the topics that we talked about were solely based on carbon emission and greenhouse.
Yeah, since we also done a research on the plastic, the relationship with the carbon emission. So basically, 99% of the plastic are producing by fossil fuel. Okay, so the whole journey, the whole cycle on producing plastic has released a huge amount of greenhouse emissions. So we have done that research.
Okay, thank you. And last question to Wong Guojin. I'm sorry if I've mispronounced your name.
Guojin, yeah.
Yeah, so you presented 3 KPIs, reducing the greenhouse gas emissions by more than 75%, 20% savings of energy consumption every year, and then at least 90% of loading density for every truck. How did you come up with why 90% as opposed to 80%, or where did you come up with those?
I guess it's just for every truck, like Woolworths has done pretty much the home delivery nowadays. I mean, especially in the COVID. So we just want to make sure that every truck has at least like 90% of loading density to just try to carry as much as possible. So just we gave this number 90%.
Okay.
So yeah, we think 90% is a quite reasonable number. Just want to try to get as much as we can. Yeah.
Okay. I think that's probably going to be one of the areas where a lot more work needs to be done on that delivery to the actual customer, making sure that's done in an efficient way. Okay, so thank you very much, team. I appreciated that. And I've just heard from Shu Ming, who is the team 1. He wasn't able to answer the question at the time because he couldn't hear the question, but he's going to email me his answer. So all good there. So thank you, everybody. Right. And so that's going to end the presentations for tonight. Next week, we'll have start off with more lecture, and then we'll move into teams 4, 5, and 6. So I look forward to seeing what you guys come up with there. And remember, go through the team briefs, and so you're ready for some questions for those teams as well. Thank you for everybody for your presentations and your questions tonight. Okay, great. I'll end the meeting there.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Good night.
Bye.